Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. The suspense is over. On the day the presidential electors were to cast their votes for president, there were a few surprises, but nothing that would change the outcome. Still, the little understood Electoral College has been in the spotlight, leading some to ask if it needs to be changed. Joining us to answer your Electoral College questions tonight are Nicholas Miller, political science professor emeritus at UMBC, and Ian Anson, UMBC assistant professor of political science. Thanks to both of you for being with us.
Thanks so much.
So, Professor, you've done research on this. From your view, Electoral College rubber stamp, or is it meant to have power?
It depends whether you're talking about what we expect today or what the framers of the Constitution expected when they wrote it into the Constitution, which was kind of a last-minute job. This was a very difficult thing for the framers to decide on, and they didn't fix the nature of the Electoral College until the last few weeks of the convention. But their expectation was that electors would be local notables who would be better informed than ordinary citizens, but on the other hand, would not be members of Congress. They'd be meeting only once for this single purpose of casting votes for president, and they'd be meeting in dispersed locations too. So their expectation was that they would be exercising their good judgment. Now, once parties developed and in effect ran tickets with their presidential, vice presidential nominees, what they did was to run candidates for the position of elector who were pledged to support their party candidates. So from that time on, really the expectation was they were just rubber stamps.
So, Professor Anson, you gave a presentation on this recently. Right. Is that how you see it, that there was sort of a kernel of power, but over time maybe it's receded?
Yeah, I mean, you have to really think about the way that the sort of political theory, political philosophy at the time was dealing with this question of sort of the body public. This idea that, for instance, Alexander Hamilton writes essentially that the American public is seldom really can judge right, is turbulent and changing. So there's really a sentiment in this kind of original document here, especially in the Federalist Paper number 68, that there needs to be some kind of safeguard against sort of the popular will. Of course, as we see, this has become sort of a pro forma exercise over the course of American history.
But today we saw at least 6, I think, between Washington State and Texas, faithless electors, as they're called, which is the most we've had in a very, very, very long time, except for the one situation we talked about where somebody had died.
That's right. That's right. Or for vice presidential candidates sometimes before that.
So, I mean, does this call the whole thing into question? Will everybody forget about it for 4 years, which is the normal course? Or might there be some pressure to do something one way or the other, either affirm that there's power or remove that power?
Well, my sense is that most political scientists and other observers of the political scene prior to the 2000 election thought, you know, the last time this has happened was back in 1888. That if we got this kind of divided verdict again, then there would be overwhelming pressure to do something about it, probably to amend the Constitution in one way or another so that it couldn't happen again.
But amending the Constitution is a difficult thing to do. You need, what, 38 states? And some of those states would be, correct me if I'm wrong, you would need some smaller states, and the smaller states get a disproportionate voice in the Electoral College. Agree?
Right. I mean, you can't really discredit the idea that there's disproportionality that exists in the Electoral College for one reason, you know, solely because the sort of Senate and House of Representatives total, that, for instance, Maryland has 10 representatives in the Electoral College, 8 for each of our districts and 2 for the senators that we have, results in some disproportionality. For example, think about Wyoming with 3 of these electors compared to California with a much larger number, but still very disproportionate when we think about a population total. That's a potential concern. Many people have argued, and some political scientists, other members of various groups, for instance, Project Fair Vote, have been talking about sort of ways to amend the Electoral College without going through this very, very tortuous route of a constitutional amendment. And it all has to do with particularly how states count those electors.
Hold the thought a second.
Sure.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about the Electoral College, maybe you have a proposed fix, give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You could also tweet your questions. The Twitter address is @MPTNews. So there's what Maryland has done, which is signing on to this idea that if enough other states sign on, we will allot those 10 electors to the winner of the national popular vote.
Right. Yeah, there's been a lot of confusion about this. I've seen online on Twitter and various places, some people arguing that Maryland, all of Maryland's electors are going to be faithless this year because of this law. In fact, that law actually does not kick into effect unless a substantial number of other states agree to the sort of interstate compact that you mentioned, in which all of those states would then cast their ballots sort of faithlessly in support of the national popular vote winner.
And some states have laws that bind the elector, but not all.
Not all, and parties have rules that bind electors. Whether those laws are constitutional has been debated. Mm-hmm. The Constitution would appear to, as I mentioned, under the original Constitution, the expectation was that electors would be free agents.
What happens if a candidate were to die, a candidate for president, in between Election Day and the day when the electors convene? Would the electors have a free hand?
Well, that's what happened in 1872 when Horace Greeley died. It didn't matter because he had only a minority of electors. He'd lost the election, in effect. If it was a winning candidate, of course, it would be a problem. I suppose the national committee of that party might nominate a successor and then expect their electors to vote for that successor. That's the way it would work before Election Day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about who these electors are, right? These are staunch partisans. You know, these are individuals who have risen in the ranks of their party. They don't hold elected office, of course. That's one qualification. But they're people that have been chosen by their party to represent that party. And so it's very unlikely that it would be sort of all chaos breaking loose in that sort of event.
And then standing behind that, the last line of resort would be the House of Representatives. Right. Can the House of Representatives pick anybody?
No.
So the electors could, but the House of Representatives could not.
Yes, I get you, yes. The House of Representatives has to choose among the top 3 candidates with respect to electoral votes.
Right. Well,
so if only 2 received electoral votes, they could only choose between those 2.
Glad we didn't have that circus this time. Let's grab a phone call.
Although now, of course, Colin Powell,
right.
Ron Paul got some, and
some Indian chief or someone in Washington.
A footnote to history.
So the House could elect any of them, or at least the one who comes in third.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I see. Let's take a phone call.
I guess it would be Colin Powell.
Fairfax, Virginia. This is Randy. Randy, thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Okay. I know Al Gore won the popular vote in 2000, but he lost the electoral vote.
Right.
And so this happens again now. Isn't there something inherently wrong with the way these votes are set up in the electoral college?
Great question. Thank you very much. There's something wrong with our system?
It's more or less inevitable that it can happen if you have a 2-tier system, and it actually happens in other political systems as well. Mm-hmm. For example, 25 years ago or so, the Liberal Party in Canada beat the Conservative Party by about 5% of the vote. Conservatives got a majority of seats in Parliament and formed the government. They're electing individual MPs. Here we're electing blocks of electors from 51 different states.
Would there be any downside to using the popular vote to choose a president?
Well, I mean, I think if we think about feasibility of, presumably you're saying if we were to somehow do away with the Electoral College wholesale, would there be a downside? I mean, really, the downside is that it's very, very difficult to get to that point, right? This is why, like I was saying earlier, the National sort of Fair Vote, National Popular Vote Project is working to try to get this system to be in place. Obviously, this is a system that is much more proportional to the outcomes. There may be individuals who might argue that states deserve still this sort of individual level ability, but I mean, I think the argument of proportionality is a strong one.
Is it fair to assume this benefits, the institution of the Electoral College benefits Republicans? Because what we've seen in the past two instances where it's happened, the Republican candidate lost the popular vote, won the presidency.
No, I would disagree with that. In recent years, it certainly benefited the Republicans back in the days of the old Solid South, from about 1900 to 1960s, by quite a bit. For example, in 1940, Franklin Roosevelt would have had to get about 51.5% of the popular vote to get an Electoral College majority. Of course, he got 55 or 60%, so it didn't matter.
Explain the math on that. Why would he have needed 51%?
Just the way that Hillary Clinton did 51.14 or something like that to get an Electoral College majority. Basically, the reason was that the Democrats were piling up huge and wasteful majorities of popular votes in the South, where the Republicans were completely non-competitive. But whether they win Mississippi by 55 or 95, and it was really 95, doesn't affect the electoral vote total.
Right. Let's grab another phone call. Baltimore County, this is Kay. Kay, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen.
Hello.
Two-part question. With our elected, with the Electoral College, with our counties here in Maryland, I wanted to know the percentage of the breakup if we do have any African-American electors, so to say. And second part of the question is, other than being a non-elected official or in the political arena, what are the requirements, or are there any? Thank you.
Very good. Thanks very much. So the requirements are you can't be an elected official.
You can't be a U.S. government
A federal
official.
elected official.
Right. I think you could be a state official.
Right.
Okay. And in terms of representation, racial breakdown, are there any rules for that? Or it would go by the party?
Yeah, that's right. So the party decides, to quote sort of a famous political science title. The party is going to decide who these individuals may be. In some states, that might be part of sort of a statewide party convention where they would then cast ballots for those individuals. In other states, it may just be chosen by some select group of individuals at the head of that party. In Maryland, there have in this election. Again, I have to apologize because I'm a newcomer to the fair state of Maryland, but I believe that there were several people of color who were electors this year. You can actually look those individuals up. The Democratic Party, obviously, because of Hillary Clinton carrying the state of Maryland, was the party that put those 10 electors forward. But some of them were former individuals who had been in government before. Others were simply individuals that were involved in the policy process at some point or another.
So the popular vote this time was reasonably close. The electoral vote was not. If you got in a situation where it was 271 to 269, the ability of an elector to go off the rails, become a faithless elector would be, their power would be heightened.
That would be much more consequential.
Here it was,
and I think
sort of for show.
Exactly that reason, in that situation, they're less likely to do it. All these faithless electors in recent years, including all the ones this year, have exercised this discretion, knowing that it's only symbolic, if you were. It's not going to affect the outcome.
In all of your years of teaching, is this something students ever want to talk about?
A great deal. Yes, it's a popular topic, and students are often somewhat confused by it. It's a very interesting topic, I think.
Fairfax County, this is Joyce. Thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You're on.
Okay. My question is,
how the states without huge populations in cities would fare with without the Electoral College, because then only the states with major populations in cities would control all of the elections. So it seems to me there's no point in changing it, that the designers, even though there were only 13 states at the time, really benefited our republic because all states are represented through the Electoral College, which would not be the case in terms of the, without it.
Very good. Joyce, thank you for the call. Thoughts? Comes down to the basics of what the thing does.
Are all counties in Maryland represented in gubernatorial elections?
Doesn't work that way. It may have at one point.
Well, I mean, it's direct popular vote. And Republican governors are sometimes elected, as the current Republican. It seems to me that the fact of the matter is most people live in big metropolitan areas, and that's where the popular votes are.
I mean, I think we need to think about the campaign, right? If we were to engage in this counterfactual, what would happen if we were to take away the Electoral College? At that point, as is sort of our democratic norm, right? We would have one person, one vote, essentially. Each individual would count essentially equally towards that national vote total. And so campaigns would then be incentivized to try to appeal to as many individuals as possible. Whereas now we have situations in which Iowa and, my home state of North Carolina, receive an astronomically large amount of the attention in these
and I think about it
right?
from a media perspective and the windfall that comes into the local TV and radio stations in those markets. We have to leave it there. Professors Anson and Miller, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Coming up tonight, answers to your foot health questions. We'll be right back.
The MPT app puts our programs right at your fingertips, so you can choose when to watch, what to watch, wherever you want to watch it. Download it now.
There is one stage that is the Met and Carnegie Hall. It is the Kennedy Center and a club in Austin. It is closer than any seat in the house, no matter where you call home. PBS, the great American stage that fits in every living room. Supporting your PBS station brings the arts home.
This is a box that showed you a world beyond your own. It was just a box, but the world has changed, and so have we. And now the box can be almost any size or shape. And you decide what you want to explore. Anytime, any place. Break out of the box with PBS.
Joining us for this week's Your Health segment is Dr. Jacob Wines, instructor of orthopedics at the University of Maryland School of Medicine and podiatric surgeon at the University of Maryland Medical Center, Medical System. Doctor, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk about part of the body that has a lot of moving parts in it and causes people a lot of problems. What's the most common issue you see?
In the office, a lot of it is actually heel pain. The good news is, over the course of 11 months, 90% or more of it goes away on its own. However, there are certain things that we can do to help alleviate that. A lot of it comes down to stretching, icing, injections, inserts, and very little of the time does it ever require surgical intervention.
Heel pain meaning somebody's walking and it hurts every time you put your foot down, or just in a resting situation it hurts?
Yes and no. So the one that gets worse with time, that is the one that usually requires a greater degree of acuity and much more attention. That could be a stress fracture, that could be nerve impingement, that could be other issues related to other tendons and muscles that interact around the ankle. But the most common we see is something called post-static dyskinesia, which is just a big word for pain after periods of rest on that first step, particularly in the morning.
How do you avoid that happening? Is it a result of bad footwear, bad posture, running, something like that?
A little bit of both. Actually, what's interesting is that that actually comes from having a very tight calf muscle. Now you're wondering, how does a calf muscle affect the heel? What's fascinating is that you have the calf, which has two muscles, which then make up the Achilles tendon. The tendon doesn't exactly stretch, but the muscles can. If the muscles in the calf are tight, the band of tissue on the bottom of the foot has to stretch even more. And when that has to stretch, that causes pulling. And that pulling hurts right where it inserts on the heel bone. So you'd imagine when you're laying down or getting up from being still, your feet are down, the calves tighten up, and you get that reflexive stretch right away when you take that first step. And that's when that ouch sort of hits.
And we talked about stretching being a solution to treatment. It's that muscle that we're stretching out?
Exactly, exactly. And it's amazing how important it is to educate people on how to stretch. Stretching is not a passive exercise. Stretching has to be a very active exercise in that you're not concentrating on strengthening the calves, but you're actually pulling back enough that you feel some resistance and allowing those muscles to stretch out to alleviate that tension on the bottom of the foot.
It must be great to be able to treat somebody where they come in with a problem and you have a simple solution that doesn't involve needles or cutting or pills.
That is exactly why I love my job. Usually get the patients in and they walk out.
That's great. Let's grab a phone call. Prince George's County. This is Thomas. Thomas, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Thomas West.
Sir, what's your question?
My question is, I went to the military in January 23rd of 1977, and I got thrown out of the bed because I didn't get up on time in the military, but I went on and graduated and served 22 years, 6 months, 2 days, retired. And I had a lump on my head, and I went to work, and I had 2 strokes.
Thomas, we want to wish you the best. We appreciate the phone call. When you think about somebody's feet and the way feet have evolved, we don't think about it too much. You probably do. They didn't evolve to be in shoes, particularly shoes with a high heel. Mm-hmm. Is that a problem?
Yeah, for the same reasons that we discussed. A lot of compensation happens from this infamous tight calf. They say that this tight calf phenomenon is called equinus, almost like a horse being equine. And what's interesting is managing this equinus, some people believe that it can be the root of all evil and a primary source of treatment, such that when you're wearing heels, particularly if you're a female or a gentleman, depending, when you wear heels, it's very important that, particularly afterwards, that you give your calves a very good stretch. And what that will do is that will also prevent a lot of the sequelae that we see. Increased pain on the ball of the foot, increased splaying of the toes. You can get this plantar fascia type symptoms that we described with that heel pain. All that can be a consequence of the way that you're walking in these heels. And it's amazing when you watch, particularly my wife, who would wear heels, and then when she comes out of the heel, she's walking on her tiptoes. And you wonder, well, why that is. It's reflexive. And what happens ultimately is when you're unable to put your heels flat on the ground, you tend to walk outward in order to compensate for that. So I think stretching is very important.
Interesting. Let's try another call. Anne Arundel County, this is David. David, thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to comment on heel pain. I had some problems with that some years ago. We used to play basketball on one night a week, Thursday night, just for your information. And my heel would hurt so bad when I would get out of bed on Friday morning. But what I found is that if I cut my basketball play down, the weekly basketball, but I put the cups into my shoes when it continued to be a nagging problem, and it seemed, I don't have any heel pain now. So I stopped the stress on my foot by discontinuing the basketball, which may not be my cardiovascular, and I think they were simple Dr. Scholl cups, and I have no heel pain now. So that might be a tip that may help some of the viewers.
David, thank you very much for the phone call. Common story?
Yeah, it can be, depending on what the cause of the heel pain is. Sometimes you get an inflammation underneath of the fascia or the ligament on the bottom of the heel and the bone, and that can be called a bursitis. Those situations do really well with heel cups. And these viscoelastic sort of polymers or these gel pads that can offload the pressure on these bursas, kind of like you would get in your elbow or your knee. You can also develop these little friction bubbles that accumulate, particularly as you sleep, And then again, that can explain why you have that first step of the morning pain as well.
Is there anything that happens this time of year in terms of, one, we have winter weather, two, we have the holidays, that winds up in your office?
Yes. Fractures from slipping on ice, falling off of a ladder with calcaneal fractures or heel bone fractures, gout after a night of potential overindulgence, particularly when you have either fish, high protein, or alcohol. I see also issues with sprains and even puncture wounds from ornaments and other things that are around the house as people are getting ready for the holidays.
Be careful with the ornaments. Any other tips before we go?
No, just basically it's important to get a shoe that fits. Make sure you have at least a half inch of space ahead of your shoe. Make sure that your shoes are very rigid. Make sure you avoid barefoot, especially when you're walking on uneven terrain. If you're around the house, just be aware of your surroundings, avoid hot food, and avoid anything from falling from heights.
Sounds like a good plan. Dr. Jacob Wines of the University of Maryland Medical System. Doctor, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thursday at this time on Your Money and Business, preparing workers for today's jobs. And remember, you can check our website, mpt.org, for updates on all of our upcoming programs, and follow us on Twitter at MPT News. Now, for all of us here at MPT, I'm Jeff Salkin. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.
Your health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.